The questions are on everyone's lips. Why are we having this unusual mild winter? Is spring right around the corner? Was the groundhog right? If the El Nino has its way, winter is almost over. So now you're probably asking yourself, just what is this El Nino? Well, it is not a designer jean, or California wine, or cold pasta dish.
El Nino is an event that occurs every 3 or 4 years, and basically it is the warming of the eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean waters. And we have noticed that whenever that event takes place, usually in the autumn, it has a linked statistically to the winter temperature over the continental U.S.
There is a difference between what normally happens with the ocean currents and what happens when the El Nino is doing its thing. Dave Gardner explains.
The southerly flow induces a southerly current, but because of the fact that the Earth rotates, there is a stress placed on the water at right angles to the direction of the flow. And in order to maintain proper circulation, cold water keeps coming up from below along the coastline and keeps the water temperatures much lower than they otherwise would be. When that stops, the sun is able to warm up the surface water without this cold water replacing it from underneath.
There is also a massive high-pressure area in the South Pacific that normally doesn't move much. When it does, the trade winds are significantly altered, and the warm winds also find their way to eastern Canada. With warm ocean waters and warm Pacific winds, we get a gentle winter. If the El Nino effect keeps up, some experts say spring is on the way a little earlier. But there are others that are less enthusiastic about some of these warm weather theories.
I'm not totally convinced that the climatologists can explain why we had such a mild winter. The original thoughts were that there would be an unusual winter and that it would be colder than normal. But as we know, that didn't turn out.
This is not the first time the El Nino has brought us an easy winter. You know, one of the odd things that happen with the El Nino effect is that the anchovy fishery goes way down because the little fish don't get enough food to survive. Well, that is okay with me because I never did like anchovies anyway. Susan Dunn, ATV News. The seductive call of offshore oil exploration is ringing loud and clear. With the increased activity off our coast, the possibility of environmental disasters also increases. When the oil tanker Kurdistan broke in two in March 1979, spilling 7,000 tons of oil, the need for a consolidated group to lend cleanup advice became glaring. It was then the Regional Environmental Emergency Team was born. It is made up of representatives from industry and the federal and provincial governments. The team responds to major environmental accidents, including oil spills. Recently, they held an oil spill countermeasures exercise with the East Coast Spill Response Association, or ESRA for short. ESRA is a group of 10 oil companies planning to explore our coastal waters. Their members taking part in this particular exercise were Mobil Oil, Petrocan, Shell Resources, and Cantera Energy. The two-day event was held in Halifax Harbor and in the waters off Eastern Passage. On the first day, an inshore oil spill was simulated. The inshore boom was anchored at 2 points around a boat tied up at dockside. A Morris MI-30 skimmer was then lowered into the water. A skimmer works very much like a vacuum cleaner. The oil, or in this exercise, the water, is sucked up through the skimmer and is pumped into a holding tank. In a real spill situation, the oil is then transferred to a truck or boat and then removed. As you can see, it's raining out right now, and as you can well imagine, the weather can play a crucial part in cleaning up an oil slick. Day 2 of the exercise was not one of the nicest days we've had this summer, but it does give you the idea of what it can be like at sea. This is the offshore boom being tied between 2 oil supply ships, the Boulder Baffin and the Wimpy Sea Hunter. The offshore equipment is much larger than the inshore machinery. This is the skimmer used offshore, this the holding tank. From here, the oil would be pumped to another boat for removal. Sometimes it is necessary to add what is called a dispersant to make the cleanup easier. The dispersant can be sprayed from a helicopter or from a boat. Outside Halifax Harbor, Susan Dunn, ATV News.